The following clip is from the North to South Show, live every Monday and Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, where we talk SEC football everything. Now, we'd love to have you out for next show, but for now, hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button, and enjoy this clip. Second year SEC head coaches, because yes, all the attention so far in the preseason, in SEC media days is, the first year head coaches, because we have a lot. We have 4 SEC first-year head coaches coming into the SEC this season. Obviously, you're going to have Shane Beamer at South Carolina. You're going to have Josh Heupel at Tennessee. You're going to have Brian Harsin at Auburn, and you're going to have Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. All the attention seems to be focused on them, and it's well-deserved because, obviously, first-year head coaches are a big deal. You don't know what their program's going to look like. You need a lot of questions answered because you haven't seen them produce a team on the field. But I think we're forgetting in the SEC that the SEC has 4, as much as we have coming into the SEC, we have 4 returning second-year head coaches coming into the SEC this season. When we saw Lane Kiffin's first season with Ole Miss last year, we saw Mike Leach's first season with Mississippi State last year, we saw Eli Drinkwitz's first season with Missouri last year, and then we also saw Sam Pittman's first season with the Arkansas Razorbacks last season. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of pitch to you guys who I think is going to have the most successful second season, because I think the third season is definitely the most important towards a coach's tenure at whatever program. Like, we're not even talking SEC, we're talking any program in college football, because kind of that third year point is where it's like, okay, you've had 2 years under your belt. This is kind of your program now. You have the players you want, you have the scheme you want, you have the coaches you want. Go out and show what you're at full potential and everything like that. But I think the second year plays a big role in how the third year goes, because you're kind of setting yourself up for that third year and kind of setting yourself up really for the future of your program, because the second year shows a lot about what you're going to show recruits for the next coming years. It shows a lot to other teams, how you're looking and how much of a threat you're actually becoming in your division or your conference and everything like that. So I'm going to go through and give you guys my predictions or my thoughts on who is going to be the most successful second-year head coach in the SEC. Now, first off, define success, because there's so many different ways that we could define success in this scenario. We could say who's going to be the most improved coach, and you could talk about most improved as an eye test, or you could talk most improved in terms of record. You could talk who's going to be the best second-year head coach is just who's going to have the best record. We could talk about who's going to have the best second year as who has the best team, the eye test of the best team. There's all these great questions and everything like that, so I kind of have it broken down into categories who I think is going to be the best head coach in a couple of the categories I have who's going to be the best team, most improved team in terms of eye test, or we're going to have who's going to be the most improved team in terms of record, and then we have who's going to be the best team straight up in terms of record. So those are the 3 categories that I have, and I will start off, and I also have who's going to be the best team eye test. So first off, I want to start off with who will have the best record overall out of these 4 teams. So obviously that is Ole Miss, Missouri, Arkansas, and Mississippi State coming into this season. And the team I have for the best record is I'm going to pick 2 teams. I'm going to go with Missouri and Ole Miss. And if I had to pick one, even though it was really tough, I'd lean towards Missouri, because Missouri has, in my opinion, a much easier schedule than Ole Miss, because not only does Ole Miss have to play the annual SEC West slate, but even some of their out-of-conference games aren't easy this year. Louisville, they play Louisville first week. Now, I fully expect that to be a win for Ole Miss, but who knows how Louisville's going to come out swinging this season. And then also, Ole Miss plays a team in Liberty this year, which obviously, I've said this every time I've talked about Liberty. Liberty is a team that you look at on paper, you see this team on your schedule in 2021, and you're like, it's Liberty. Why should we be worried about them? Because you think of the logo, you think of the Liberty logo, and honestly, what image or what comes to mind when you think of the Liberty logo? Pretty much nothing, because that is a team that you should beat 10 times out of 10 if you were an SEC program. But Liberty is a very, very, very good team this year. We're going to see how Malik Willis does this season. Obviously, he is one of the better QBs in all of the college football this season, so very intriguing game there. You look at Missouri. Missouri travels to Boston College this season, and obviously they do get Texas A&M at home, which is going to be kind of a tough game. You talk about out-of-conference games or out-of-division games for Ole Miss. Obviously, you're going to have to play Vanderbilt, as they do every season, which should be a win, but you also travel to Tennessee. Could be a bit of an interesting game there, but overall, I think Missouri probably, if I had to put money on either of these teams having the better record, I'd take Missouri just because of the schedule they have. I have both of ththese teams going around 7-5, 8-4 this season, and at the absolute best, I could pick out 9 wins for each of these teams. Like, that's how good I feel about both these teams this year. And the schedule, I honestly think, lines up very nicely for Mizzou to pick up 9 wins. And Ole Miss, if they come out swinging, if they start to play some defense, they could probably pick up 9 wins this season. You're just going to probably suffer a loss to Alabama, LSU, and Texas A&M. But the other games are definitely winnable games for Ole Miss, 110%. So that's who I have will be the best record in their second season. So obviously I have Lane Kiffin and Eli Drinkwitz. Best team overall in terms of eye test coming in or after this season, I'm going with the Ole Miss Rebels and Lane Kiffin because obviously you saw what they did last year. If we're talking in terms of competitiveness and actually giving good teams a shock, obviously Ole Miss had an amazing game against Alabama. Ole Miss didn't get the opportunity to play Texas A&M. Obviously that game got canceled multiple times due to coronavirus, which was very unfortunate because that was supposed to be our CBS game of the week. Very excited to see that one. And even this team, they did lose to LSU, but it was a very close game. I think this Ole Miss team definitely has the capability to be the best or the biggest threat out of any of these teams I just named in the SEC in terms of winning a division or challenging for a division championship. Because Missouri, even though I think Missouri is going to be very good this season, and I think Missouri does have a shot at being the second best team in all the SEC this season, or the SEC East this season, I think they do have a shot at getting that second place spot. Can I see Missouri right now challenging Georgia? Not really. They didn't really last year, and I'm not really feeling confident about Missouri doing the same this year. Can I see Ole Miss challenging Alabama? Now, obviously, they played a very close game last year. Now, obviously, this game is being played in Alabama this season. Ole Miss, on the other hand, though, they have the offense to compete with Alabama. Does Missouri have the offense to compete with Georgia? I don't think so. Does Missouri have the defense to compete with Georgia right now? I don't think so. Does Ole Miss have the defense to compete with Alabama? No, they do not. But does Ole Miss have the offense to compete with Alabama? Yes, they do. So if I look at any team, unit specifically, like you pick out offense and defense, who has the best unit to be able to compete with some of the top teams, I am going Ole Miss 110%. Matt Corral is the best QB in the SEC, in my opinion. You got some great wide receivers out there. Dontario Drummond, Braylon Sanders. Your running back room is going to be super stacked. You're on Ely. You're going to have Snoop Connor. There's a lot to love about this Ole Miss offense. And if anyone, eye test-wise, is going to be the best team out of these 4 teams that I have named, in my opinion, it is going to be the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, eye test, who's going to be the most improved in terms of eye test? And for this one, I'm going to go the Arkansas Razorbacks. Now, Arkansas obviously went 3-7 last season. I say this every time. You know what? This is the last time I'm ever going to mention this. I'm never going to say it in another video. Asterisk 4-6 because of the Auburn game. I know Arkansas fans love to talk about that, but that's the absolute last time that I'm mentioning that when I talk about Arkansas, because it's time to transition on to this season. Arkansas went 3-7 last year, but this is going to be a very competitive team this season, obviously. Still a lot to be told about what KJ Jefferson is going to do for this offense, but I think he has great weapons around him. Obviously, Treylon Burks is going to be one of the better wide receivers in all the SEC, in all of college football this season. He's going to be a great weapon for KJ Jefferson to have on the outside. You're also going to have Treylon Smith in the running game. I think this offense is in a really, really good spot to have a successful season. Defensively is really where I look at Arkansas, and I'm going to see major improvements in terms of eye test. Grant Morgan is looking like he's going to be one of the better linebackers in all the SEC. Let's not forget that is a linebacker conference unit that you're also going to have to compete with Will Anderson. You're also going to have to compete with Christian Harris. You're also going to have to compete with Christopher Allen, all those Alabama guys, and all the other guys that you got on the other programs. So I think Grant Morgan's definitely one of the better guys in all the SEC, and lined up with him also Bumper Pool out of Arkansas, definitely one of the better linebackers in all the SEC. So I think defensively at the linebacker position, you're going to be really good. Looking at the secondary, Jalen Catalon's going to be really good this year. Obviously, one of the best safeties in the SEC. So if I'm taking eye tests from what you saw from Arkansas last year, which was obviously very improved from years prior, I think you're going to see an even more improvement and start to see Arkansas giving some of these mid-tier SEC West teams a run for their money. They're going to come out with a win against an Auburn this season, against a LSU this season, maybe against a Ole Miss this season. I bet you in one of those 3 games, you will see the Arkansas Razorbacks come out with a win in one of those, because that's how competitive they are. I'm not going to tell you which one it's going to be, but I guarantee you in one of those 3 games, Arkansas will come out with a win in one of those. And then overall, my last one, I have most improved record, which means basically who's going to have the best margin of how many games they won last year compared to how many games they won this year. I'm going with Ole Miss. It was really between Ole Miss and Arkansas for me, and you can make a strong case for Missouri as well. But I'm going with Ole Miss. Ole Miss only won 4 games last year, and again, I said it, I think that Ole Miss can win 8 games pretty easily this season, win 7 games, so that is already putting you at 7 games. You're going to have 3 wins. I also think that Arkansas has a good chance to win 6 games this season, but I think it's more likely for Ole Miss to get in that +3 margin. And then, of course, I also said Missouri has a good chance to win 8 games this season, and they won 5 games last year. That obviously puts you at a +3 margin. But if I had to put money on any of these teams getting to a +3 margin, I'd probably put it on Ole Miss. And again, I said I think this Ole Miss team could win 8 games, and that's going to put you at a +4 margin for an Ole Miss team that went 4-5 last season. So those are my kind of categories that I had for, yes, you want to talk about who's going to be the most successful in their second year in the SEC out of the head coaches, but it really depends on how you define success. So that's why I kind of broke it down in all those categories, and that's how I did it.